The time has come and we are checking out the new Xiaomi 15T Pro's camera. We've been using it since August, so which means we've had decent amount of time with it to find out what's new with it, what's the same as its predecessor, and how you can shoot like we did in this video. So let's not waste any time and dive right into this one because we are excited and you're watching The Adventures of Vesper. Let's begin. Now, to touch upon the entire phone for a bit, there are some improvements of course, and this time around the 15T Pro feels more premium than last year's 14T Pro. A sleek body follows a similar design language as the Xiaomi 15 with that nice curve at the right places, which is noticeable when you put it side by side. The Corning Gorilla Glass used here is the 7i, which is their cost-cutting measure to keep this phone in a more obtainable price point, which we will get into in a bit. It is durable, but try not to do funny things with it. Now, the display is actually slightly bigger than the Xiaomi 15 Ultra, coming in at 6.83 inch with 1.5K resolution and a pretty thin bezel too. In fact, the first time we see a very premium finish on a Xiaomi T series, I feel. This time it uses a MediaTek Dimensity 9400 Plus, and the T series has mostly been powered by MediaTek, and honestly the hate has to stop somewhere, and the performance out of this one is actually pretty decent. And then you have a 5500 mAh battery, support for 90-watt charging, and of course it still supports the faster wireless charging as well, Wi-Fi 7 and IP68. Okay, now that all of this is out of the way, we're gonna dive into what we really do care about, and that's the camera. Now, for starters, I'm genuinely happy that I still see a functional triple camera setup, which is an ultra-wide camera, a normal, and a telephoto sensor. And fret not, all the rumors aside, the Leica Xiaomi co-engineering collaboration is here to stay. And for the second time in the T series, we see the cameras use the Sumilux lenses, which is great. So what's the same? Let's start off with the primary sensor. Made its debut in Xiaomi 14 and till today, the Light Fusion 900 sensor is Xiaomi's custom image sensor powering the primary camera, and we see the same sensor on the Xiaomi 15T Pro. Not the Xiaomi 15, by the way, because that uses the 800 and we don't have that phone to try, so we don't know how the performance is. Now, the sensor here does a great job in giving 23mm, 28mm and 35mm equivalent focal length, which is your typical everyday photo shooting experience. Now, looking at the photos taken here, you can notice like the posture here, the colors and the exposures are really nicely handled and the details are retained quite well. With two tones involved, you can notice how the top part of the car has the warmer lighting and the front bumper has a brighter and slightly cooler tone, and it has retained all of the tones very well. Now, I'm not quite sure why the main sensor has a wider angle than I anticipated, as you can see of how this wheel shot looks like, because 23mm is actually pretty wide if you ask me. Now, the pictures of my friends over here are quite nice as well, though the lights are a little blown out, and that's because I've turned off HDR as I'm not a fan of it. The store image here, as you can see, the multiple tones all exposed very well, and it has that interesting contrast which appears to be a MediaTek thing. Now, while this isn't a new sensor, again, it appears to be the MediaTek processor ISP doing its color production, which I would recommend you to watch our last year's Xiaomi 14T Pro video where we addressed all of that, because it is a very nice educational video if you ask us. Now, the next camera that's the same is the ultra-wide camera. I'm sure cost is a factor here, but I'll say what I've said before. The ultra-wide camera needs an improvement because it uses the same 12-megapixel f2.2 sensor, which is okay in a well-lit condition, but in low light the consistency drops when you put it side by side with the main camera or even the telephoto camera. Under bright light condition, like the Stadium Bukit Jalil shot looks pretty dynamically beautiful, though it has that shutter glitch where it fails to capture the object in movement steadily, but I feel like it has this dramatic flair, which is kind of nice as well. And then back to the pictures of my friends, side by side with the main camera sensor, you can actually see the color inconsistency, which is due to the lower megapixel count. It's not a bad thing, but when you want consistency across all the camera, the ultra wide camera feels left out. However, use the ultra wide camera to your advantage, and with the EV control, getting some nice dynamic shots is possible. Now, to the big improvement, which is the biggest improvement in a camera, especially on a T series. Last year's 14T Pro had a 60mm fixed optical telephoto sensor, similar to what the Xiaomi 15 telephoto sensor is. And for the first time ever, we are seeing a Periscope telephoto camera setup on the Xiaomi 15T Pro. Now, compared to a conventional optical telephoto sensor, which usually has a fixed focal length and relies on software for its zoom, and that's where the whole AI hoo-ha does its enhancing. Whereas the Periscope telephoto sensor is a much better camera to shoot photos of further subjects with better sharpness, clarity, and color retention. Think of it this way: you have a camera body and you want 3 lenses to go along with it. And these 3 lenses are prime lenses with 3 different focal lengths. So let's just say it's a 24mm, 50, and an 85. Now these are fixed focal lengths and you can't zoom in or anything, and you just have to shoot with the prime setup. Now that's how the 14T Pro camera setup was like. That's how the Xiaomi 15 camera setup was like. Now the Xiaomi 15T Pro is a little bit different. Now think of it this way: you have 2 prime lenses and 1 zoom lens. In this case, the 2 prime lenses are the ultrawide and the main sensor, and the zoom is the periscope sensor, as it now hits 115 to 240mm equivalent focal length by adjusting a physical glass in the telephoto system. Now for those who love concerts, right, the Periscope telephoto camera does a much better job than the optical camera. We couldn't go to Tinashe's concert in Singapore, but recently we shot these photos of Mimi Fly at an event. I got to meet her, so that was awesome. And you can see some of the following samples, and I have to say these are pretty well retained details under low light condition, and I was expecting a completely different performance out of this. The 150mm does a nice job, though the tone with this sensor appears to be more on a colder side than warm, which I hope to see it get fixed in an update. Punch it to 230mm, this is where you'll notice the slight setback you'll experience with any periscope camera out there. The softening edges, which is something we have to live with for a slightly better photo, the 150mm does a decent job over the 230mm. And of course, from where you shoot matters too. So if you're doing a 115/230mm shoot in a short range, you can get amazing details out of this camera. And if you want to do the usual skyscraper shot, you get shots like this. One thing I do love about the Periscope telephoto setup is the depth separation. Like this image where you can see the tree branches and the leaves are in different focal planes, which gives a nice depth, to be honest. Overall, the entire camera setup with the T series is getting better, though I'm still holding out hopes for that ultra wide to get better, but man, the telephoto sensor with the periscope optical setup is a step in the right direction. Now the next thing you're all going to say is that, of course the photos are going to be great. Xiaomi paid you to do this content. When we buy this phone, it won't shoot like the way you shoot. Don't worry, I got you. Because there are some of my favorite photos taken with the Xiaomi 15T Pro, and these are the things that I do when I shoot with the Xiaomi 15T Pro or any phone for that matter. The first few days, my first tip would be just explore the camera app and learn what it offers, and then experiment the following. Starting off with the first one, HDR mode on and off. Now HDR to me is a double-edged sword. Sometimes it can really help you and other times it can ruin a shot. So I'd rather control the exposure on my own, and with the exposure compensation control, you can even take it up a notch by truly being able to capture the photos that you love. I don't like the contrasty black that the MediaTek processor tends to produce, so I went for the Leica Vibrant color profile instead, so which was more up to my liking. EV and exposure are two totally different things. Exposure compensation, which is also known as EV, and when you compensate it, the amount of light increases and decreases depending on the value. With this comes a different type of shutter speed and aperture value, but in this case the aperture is fixed. So in moments you can control how you truly want your photos to turn out. Like here we wanted to capture the right blues of Miyabi, and which it did help a lot. Compared to last year's Xiaomi 14T Pro, the biggest improvement apart from the display processor and battery happens to be the telephoto camera, more specifically the Periscope telephoto camera. Usually in this price point, right, almost all the phones you can find features a conventional fixed optical telephoto camera sensor, and to get something like a Periscope setup you usually have to fork out a lot of money, because these are cameras that you can only find in flagship devices, and even if you were to find it in mid-tier devices, the focal range is not quite there. And to find a camera that can do 115 millimeters all the way up to 230 millimeters in periscope setup for the price of 2,699 ringgit, it is crazy. If you're looking for a periscope telephoto camera on a smartphone without breaking the bank, considering the Xiaomi 15T Pro isn't a bad idea after all. The only price difference you'll be paying for is for the storage configuration, which depending on which one you prefer, and in this case the RAM is defaulted to 12 gigs, so that's great. So there is no change in any of the variants. Now the storage configuration is what you're truly paying for, so which means you're gonna pay like 2,699 ringgit for 256, 2,999 ringgit for half a terabyte, and 3,499 ringgit for 1 terabyte. Honestly, that 1 terabyte variant is pretty cool. In fact, we actually are holding the 1 terabyte variant right here. So isn't it worth it, don't you think? But since we only focused on the camera aspect in this video, if you want to see more full review on other aspect of this phone, do leave us a comment in the comment section below, and do keep it respectful, and we are more than happy to help you out. Thank you so much for watching this video, and huge thanks to Xiaomi Malaysia for making this video happen, and we will catch you in another video. Until then, this is Prithviraj signing off. Take care, and I'll see you guys real soon. Bye.